for a Ruth recap. This is week 3. So here's our recap. Chapter 1, it was a dark and stormy night. You have a Jewish family, Elimelech and his wife Naomi, and their 2 sons. And there's a famine going on, so they flee. They leave Bethlehem and go to the enemy nation of Moab to live there. And when they get there, Elimelech dies, leaving Naomi a widow. In time, both sons marry Moabite women, and both sons die. So then when the famine is over, Naomi, together with one of her daughters-in-law, Ruth, head back to Bethlehem. Chapter 2, girl meets boy. When they're back there, 2 widows, they really have no way to support themselves. No way to really survive in that sort of climate and that sort of society. And so Ruth goes gleaning, meaning she goes behind the harvesters in a field to pick up the stuff they drop, they leave there to support them. And so as she goes gleaning, she winds up in the fields of a man named Boaz, who happened to be a relative of Naomi's husband. And so the 2 of them meet. And when they do, Boaz shows kindness to her. He shows kindness to her because he had already heard good reports of how faithful she had been to her mother-in-law. And so he shows kindness to her. Naomi is an aging widow. Ruth is a young widow. And Ruth, again, was a Moabite woman, a Moabitess, who had come to a strong faith in the true God, and also had showed this amazing loyalty and commitment to Naomi in following her, leaving her homeland and following her and coming back to live with her. But the 2 of them, they're living in poverty. They're looking for a way to survive. And Ruth just happened to end up in Boaz's field to glean. And so Boaz shows her kindness. He shows her generosity. But he's also a relative, meaning he's a potential kinsman redeemer or guardian redeemer. So a guardian redeemer was the closest male relative to a husband or father who could, if anything happened to that husband or father, step in and help care for the family left behind. And in all kinds of various ways, and including marrying the widow, providing an heir for the family, buying back property that maybe they had to sell in order to get by, a number of ways. And so if this guardian redeemer was wealthy, which Boaz was, then he'd be able to help, to give this kind of help to relatives like Naomi and Ruth, who were both widows, poor, and desperately in need. So Naomi had been thinking that Boaz was probably their only hope. So she was hoping that Boaz, this potential guardian redeemer, would be willing to purchase the property of her family so that they could retain it. But even better yet, hoping that maybe he would be able or willing to marry one of them. And since she was too old for bearing children, that he'd be willing to marry Ruth and provide a male heir so that the land, in the way it worked back then, could stay in their family. So, what better than a marriage between Boaz and Ruth? And he had been very kind, very generous to her. But would that kindness extend to marriage? Because remember, Ruth was a Moabitess, and it wasn't normal for Israelite men to marry Moabite women. With that, let's dive back in the story now. Let's hear what happens in the beginning of chapter 3. Now one day, Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, said to her, "My daughter, I must find a home for you where you will be well provided for. Now, Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight, he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do. Naomi is playing the matchmaker here. And her plan had some risks, didn't it? She was telling, and in this day and age, in the way this culture was, she was telling Ruth to initiate a proposal of marriage. So here's how it worked. Boaz would be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. And after that, apparently, Naomi was aware that Boaz would probably just sleep right there to guard the harvest. All right, and so he would be sleeping there. And so Naomi told Ruth to make herself as attractive as possible and go down to the threshing floor and wait till Boaz was done eating and drinking until he had gone and lied down. Take careful note where he lied down, where he was sleeping. And then once everyone else left, go uncover his feet and lie down. Seems strange to us. But as we gather the rest of the circumstances and sort of context of the story by doing this, Ruth was officially asking Boaz for a marriage proposal. By uncovering his feet and lying there, Ruth made it clear that she wanted Boaz as her husband. It was a bit risky. How was Boaz, this was not a normal thing, how would Boaz interpret what Ruth was doing? Would he see something as like in bad taste? Would he be offended? Would he reject her as some kind of promiscuous woman who is trying to horn in on something and throw her out? Would he be bothered by what she did, thinking it was inappropriate? Here, Naomi was banking on Ruth's character. That banking on the fact that Boaz had already got to know Ruth well enough to know that Ruth wouldn't do something that inappropriate, that her intentions wouldn't be bad. So Naomi's banking on Ruth's character. But the other thing, would Boaz, after a night of enjoying wine, take advantage of this situation? Have his way with Ruth without thinking about marriage at all? Do something he shouldn't have? The kind of thing that actually did happen a lot on the threshing floor during harvest festivities. So here, Naomi was banking on Boaz's character. Ruth trusted Naomi. She knew there was risks in what she was doing, but she also trusted Boaz, because Boaz had shown himself to be a man of good character. In fact, he had spoken the Lord's blessing on her. And maybe we expect that with what we've seen of them so far, but you got to remember, this is the time of the judges. Like, if you just read the few chapters before this story in the Bible, the things that were going on were not good. This was the time of the judges when everyone did as they saw fit. There was no king, there was no law in the land, and everyone did what they want. And there's some horrible stories about the kind of things that people are doing to other people. But even though this was the time of the judges when bad things were happening in places like Bethlehem, Ruth not only trusted Naomi and Boaz, Ruth trusted God. Let's get back into the story. I will do whatever you say, Ruth answered. She answered that to Naomi. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. "Who are you?" he asked. I am your servant Ruth, she said. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family. So Boaz and his men had celebrated the harvest with some feasting and drinking. He was in good spirits. The wine helped make Boaz happy. So he went in and he lied down. And then after he did, Ruth came in quietly, uncovered Boaz's feet, and curled up modestly at his feet. That's why it was important for her to note carefully where Boaz had lied down so she didn't go and uncover the feet of the wrong person. Well, eventually, Boaz woke up. I don't know, maybe his feet were cold, but Boaz woke up, was surprised to find a woman lying at his feet, asked who she is. I mean, remember, it's dark at night. Maybe it was too dark out. He didn't immediately recognize her. Also, maybe he had never seen Ruth this dressed up before. But didn't recognize her right away. He asked who she is, and Ruth identified herself by name and made it clear that she saw herself as his servant. She says, spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family. Literally, the words are, spread your wings over your servant girl. Spread your wings over your servant girl. Now, when Boaz first met Ruth, working out in his field as a poor person, gleaning what was left behind by the harvesters, he offered up a prayer for her. Here was the prayer. He said, may you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. And now Ruth is saying to Boaz, will you be part of the answer to that prayer by spreading your wings over me in marriage? This was a marriage proposal. Well, Boaz had already sort of spread his wings of protection over Ruth. Remember, he told the men not to touch her. He gave a lot of food to her. He shared his wealth with her. And then he let her glean way more than was normal. So he had already sort of spread his wings over her. But Ruth was asking him to extend those wings even further by being her guardian redeemer and marrying her, making her become part of his family and his people. Here's how it continues. The Lord bless you, my daughter, he replied. He's excited. This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Although it is true that I am a guardian redeemer of our family, there is another who is more closely related than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to do his duty as your guardian redeemer, good, let him redeem you. But if he's not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here till morning. So she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized. And he said, no one must know that a woman came to the threshing floor. He also said, bring me the shawl you're wearing and hold it out. And when she did so, he poured into it 6 measures of barley and placed the bundle on her. And then he went back to town. So Boaz got the message. He understood the marriage proposal. And he never doubted Ruth's intentions. He knew she wouldn't be up to anything, any bad intentions. And Ruth knew that her trust in Boaz was well placed. She had nothing to fear, nothing to be afraid of, nothing shameful was going to happen, nothing shameful happened. And Boaz, once again, in this situation, what does he do? He asks the Lord to bless her. But don't miss this. Boaz was blown away that she would come to him for marriage instead of one of the more younger, attractive men in the village. And he finds this an even greater kindness than Ruth had been showing to Naomi with her loyalty to Naomi. And Ruth is, again, she's showing her faithfulness by choosing to come to Boaz, even though he was a much older man, for marriage. Boaz, he felt lucky. Seriously, he felt blessed. Ruth obviously must have been beautiful both inside and out, because Boaz really pays a compliment to her. Basically, he tells her, you could have any husband you wanted. but you showed the kindness by coming to me. So that gets us wondering maybe this. Well, if Boaz admired Ruth so much, and if he was so attracted to Ruth, then why didn't he make the first move long ago as the guardian redeemer and propose marriage to her? We don't know. There's a number of reasons it could be. Maybe he thought he didn't have a chance. We could see that. Maybe it could be that up to this point, remember how Naomi told her to get all dressed up and all that? It could be that up to this point, Ruth had been wearing the traditional clothes of a grieving widow. And so it would have been sort of inappropriate or dishonorable. It would have Boaz had the decency and the honor to not invade her time of grief with talk of marriage. But now all of a sudden that Ruth was dressed in the regular clothes, she was sort of letting it know that she's done with her grieving and ready to be approached. But there is another reason in the text, and another reason could be that he knew something that we didn't know until right now. He wasn't the nearest kinsman redeemer. So he didn't have the legal right to take it on himself to propose marriage to Ruth. Well, in sort of a fancy way, Boaz says yes. if Ruth is sort of putting the engagement proposal out there, Boaz is all in. Yes. And he says yes by saying, I will do all you ask. I will do for you all that you ask. And then he says he is sure that the people of the town are going to give their blessing on this, even though she's from Moab, because they all know of her virtue. They all know what an amazing woman Ruth is and how loving and kind and faithful she has been. And honestly, knowing how the Israelites feel about Moabites, that is amazing. Here is one woman from Moab that everyone there is going to celebrate and be happy about. But then he drops the bomb. He isn't the closest guardian redeemer. There's another guy who's closer. There's one closer who has the first right to step up and fulfill this duty. So Boaz promises Ruth that he's going to look into it first thing in the morning. And if that other guy isn't willing, Boaz is telling her, I'm your guy. I'm your man. Then, to keep this engagement proposal secret for now, and also since it wouldn't be safe for Ruth to return alone at night, Boaz tells her to lie here until morning. And then we're told this. So Ruth lay at his feet until morning. This never evolved into a sexual situation. It never evolved into anything it wasn't supposed to be. Both Boaz and Ruth showed the importance of faithfulness and character. They kept their upcoming marriage sacred. This mattered to them. Boaz wanted to honor Ruth's virtue and her reputation. He wanted her to leave before anyone saw her so they wouldn't think the wrong things about her. Boaz wanted to protect her from people thinking that she did this bold, provocative thing by going to the threshing floor at night alone to try to seduce him or to have any wrong intentions. And if anyone suspected that there had been sexual relations between them, then they wouldn't have been able to have that sacred marriage that they wanted. And so Boaz's intentions with Ruth were nothing but honorable and loving, what would serve her best. And as she's heading, what does he do? He sends her home with more food. He's like, come here, let me send you home with more food. This guy is in love. He's in love. Sends her home with food. And so, here's how the story continues. When Ruth came to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, how did it go, my daughter? Then she told her everything Boaz had done for her and added, he gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. Then Naomi said, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens, for the man will not rest until the matter is settled today. Naomi asks, how did it go, my daughter? That literally, the words there can literally be translated like this. So who are you now, my daughter? As in, well, do I have a Mrs. Boaz standing in front of me now? And then Ruth tells her the whole engagement story, right? That's fun to do, right? Telling the engagement story. Tells her the whole engagement story, and then shows her the ring. Nope, shows her the barley. Check this out. Boaz didn't want me to come home to you empty-handed. Wink, wink. In other words, Mom, Boaz knows what you're up to. He knows that you've been behind this, but he's really glad that you are. So Boaz is basically saying with this gift of barley, he's saying, thank you, Naomi. And there's a whole lot more barley where that came from. So that's how the chapter ends. We're left hanging. Will Boaz be able to redeem her? Or will Ruth end up thrown into the house of another man? How's it going to turn out? You'll have to join us next week as we conclude the story. But there are some good takeaways here for us, like this. Faithfulness is doing the right thing even when it isn't the easiest thing. Consider Ruth. Just such a great example of faithfulness. Consider how Ruth left her home, left her homeland, left her family, left her people, left any probably real decent chances of ever marrying someone from her own people, of her own age, and faithfully followed Naomi to a foreign land, and then was willing to go on this whole dangerous adventure Naomi sends her on, trusting her, trusting God, and being willing to marry this much older man. So thinking about Ruth here, how many times have we known what is best to do, known what would be best to do, what would be right to do, what would be the most faithful, committed thing to do, and even though it wasn't the most appealing thing to do, we did it anyway. That's faithfulness. Isn't that the real test of faithfulness? Not doing what is easy or what is desirous, but what isn't, when the right thing isn't. And Ruth chooses, we see here again and again, choosing faithfulness to God and faithfulness to Naomi. Here by going to Boaz and laying at his feet, even though he might not have been the most desirous bachelor, his own words. What kind of decisions do we face like that? Maybe choosing a less desirable or less impressive job or career because you want to be a better spouse, a better parent, a better son or daughter. Maybe it's being a friend to someone who really demands a whole lot more from you than they offer to you. Maybe it's turning down a promotion that would end up, even though it would pay you more money, but it would take you away from family more. It would pay you more, but it would take you away from home more. Or maybe it's taking that hard parenting path where you're continually pressing your children to work hard at doing what's best, rather than just, pampering them and letting them do what they want. Or spending the long time it takes to do things that are going to grow your faith, even though they might not be the most, fun things to do all the time, and it sort of sometimes just takes a long time. It might be more fun to do other things. Ruth could have gone to any man, but she went to the one who would redeem her. You and I, we can go to anything. We can go to the world for fulfillment. But we should go to the one who can redeem us. Don't go to the world to fulfill you. Go to the God who can save you. So, faithfulness is doing the right thing, even when it isn't the easiest thing. Don't go to the world to fulfill you. Go to the God who can save you. And then there's Boaz. Boaz, who really here, like, he's this wealthy guy. He's in a position of strength. He's in a place where he's a people who he's in a place where whom people were relying on to be the right person and be a person of character and do the right thing, even when he could have done the wrong thing. And so that brings us to our third one. Character isn't tested in the light of day, but in the dark of night. What situations do we find ourselves in where we're called to be people of character and virtue? And we hold the upper hand. We could do something that we shouldn't. Character isn't tested in the light of day, but in the dark of night. Character is tested when no one is looking. Character is tested when you could get away with it, when you hold the power, when you can do something, but you don't do it. That's when character is tested. So, like, the decisions that you could make that no one would know about either way that you make them. Or like what you scroll to on your phone that no one else but you is going to see. Or maybe what you do with your money that only you are going to know about, that won't affect anyone else. Or maybe what thoughts you allow your mind to have and you allow to live in your mind and heart because they aren't going to hurt anyone. The things that you could easily get away with, but you decide not to anyway. Would we pass the Boaz test? Character is who you are when no one is looking. So I think we see great examples of that today with God working in their lives and working through their lives. Both Ruth and Boaz show us the importance of faithfulness and character. And you know what else they show us? They also show us Jesus, who showed us perfect faithfulness and character. See, Jesus was willing to do the awful thing for us. His Father sent him on a dangerous mission. His Father sent him to come to us and do this incredibly difficult thing. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't desirable, and it wasn't fun. To be hated by the world you created, the world that should love you, to be rejected and scorned, to be tortured and killed. And yet Jesus faithfully followed his Father's will. Jesus was faithful. He was perfectly faithful to his Father's will so that we could be forgiven for all the times we haven't been faithful. And so that when God looks at us, he now sees us as faithful. He sees us with the faithfulness of his Son. And then like Boaz always remained true to character, but in a much greater way, in a much more perfect way, all the way to the end, Jesus remained in perfect character. Not only in his actions that people saw, but in the actions that no one ever saw. And in his loving words of grace and forgiveness. And yeah, even in his thoughts that no one but his Father could have seen. In Jesus was perfect righteousness. Perfect faithfulness. Perfect character. For you. The perfect righteousness, faithfulness, and character that God now sees in you. Because Jesus gave that to us. That's the kind of God we have. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you for giving us perfect faithfulness and character and righteousness, even though we haven't lived that. In the good news of that, help us all live as people of character, live as people of faithfulness to you, showing others what you are like to us. In Jesus' name.